because otherwise I'll forget. All right. So Tammy's tired. That's good. Michelle, how are you?
I'm okay. The weekend's always too short.
Yes, agreed. Did you have a busy one?
Just running people.
Yeah, chauffeuring the children.
Yes.
Gotcha. How about you, Susie? Susie Moon.
Little overwhelmed. Lots
Okay.
going on. It's a Monday. Everybody's
Yeah.
needing things. And I got accepted to this, I don't even know, a startup program this week. Like on
Okay.
Friday, I got accepted. So this week I'll be like in meetings
Okay.
for startup. So yeah, I wasn't
With
planning.
with everything else also, huh?
Yeah, good time.
Okay. All right. Well, let's all just take a deep breath. So today we're going to talk about some just debunking some myths and talking a little bit about how our brains function so that we can better understand why food and exercise and willpower and accountability are not necessarily the only things that are at play when we're talking about losing weight and staying on track and all of those things. So I'm going to share my screen and we will dive right in. Okay, so I just thought it was really interesting because I talked to all of you on the phone before. And so I just thought it was interesting to pull out some of the things that were commonly said or that someone said that I think everyone can relate to. So I've tried everything. I'm having a hard time allowing myself to be different than I was. I can't stay accountable to just myself. I just want to be healthy. Why am I so successful in every area of my life except for this? I came out of the womb on a diet. Shame and guilt. I'm willing to try anything different now. Um, Nothing I've tried taught me how to handle stressful situations or taught me to find alternatives to snacking. And I don't want to be a slave to food anymore. Can you guys resonate with all or most of those? Yeah. Yeah. So you're not alone. So I just want you to reflect. If you guys have a pen and paper handy, there'll be a couple things that I ask you just to jot down or think about. And sometimes I process better if I jot it down. So if that's helpful to you, if you need to grab one. Um, so let's just do kind of a brain dump on what kinds of things you have tried in terms of diet, exercise, weight loss, different ways of eating, different things to try to be healthy and maybe circle ones that worked and put a mark by things that didn't work. And then just jot down a couple things like, why do you think it worked? Why do you think it didn't work? And what was missing if it didn't work? And then also just how did it feel when you realized it didn't work or it stopped working or you fell off or whatever that situation was? What were the feelings around that? And then even more specifically, how did you feel about yourself? You guys are writing a lot. I'll give you like 30 more seconds. Such diligent students. So does anyone want to share a couple of things that maybe they tried that didn't work, or how it felt, or all the above?
Sorry, I will.
I can hear
I,
you.
I I've done Weight Watchers like several times,
Okay.
so, and it works every time. But then if if I don't follow it, it's back to normal.
Okay.
And it seems like since I'm closing the gap to 50, it's a lot harder
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. To lose weight in the first place or to stay on it, or
To
both?
lose it in the first place.
Okay.
And it's like my husband doesn't eat a cheeseburger for a day and loses 20.
Right.
So it makes you so it makes me so angry because I'm like,
Yeah.
seriously, like, anyway. So that's kind of my thought.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I just learned the other day that I thought was super interesting, and I don't know where you are in the process, but when we start edging toward menopause, the mechanism for storing estrogen is fat. So our bodies want to hold on to fat so that we can keep as much estrogen on board as we can, because we're starting to the decline of making it. And so we're trying to store it. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that,
This
you
is
know,
what I think about that.
right, right. This is one of those things where it's like, okay, so can we wrap our heads around the fact that our bodies are really fucking wise and really listen to them? And how does that translate to what we think about ourselves and all that? But that's a rabbit hole we're not going to go down today. Maybe one of the other days. Okay. Anybody else want to share some of what they've tried? Or, oh, and Michelle, before I let you go, how does it feel when you go back to normal and you put the weight back on?
You just feel like a failure, and it's like, and then I start getting to the point where I'm like, well, why even try?
Yeah.
Because it's gonna irritate me. So who cares anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
For the most part, when I was in 8th grade, I went through a weight loss program, and I think I lost 60 pounds, 55 pounds or whatever at 8th grade. Nobody my age was going through any of that. And
Right.
it was, so I vowed that I would never ever go through a program again like that. But even though I'm like beyond what I started with now, if that made sense. I'm at
Yeah.
the weight that I always used exercising. Oh, I need a new exercise program.
Mhm.
Oh, I need to run. And so running is only good so far until your body can't do it anymore. It's
Mhm.
hard on your body. I've done V-shred, I've done beach body, I've done, you name it, I've tried the exercise thing, and either I'm not motivated enough.
Mhm.
I will not go on a program. I'm like
Mhm.
such a rebel when it comes to that, because I
Okay.
don't ever want to have to be regimented like I was before.
Right.
And even though it probably would do me good, to
Would
have
it?
it, I don't know. I mean, I'm just
How
so
did,
stubborn about it
why do you think that is?
because it was so hard.
Mm.
And
It was
I don't,
probably kind of traumatic for an eighth grader
yeah,
to
Yeah.
feel that isolated.
and embarrassing,
Mm.
you know.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought I could control it. I was always trying to control it
Mhm.
after that. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do XYZ to control it. I'm gonna eat little meals or whatever instead of
Right.
big meals, whatever. So I've never wanted to go back onto a portion control or like a labeled diet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That totally makes sense because it was a traumatic experience and like you said, embarrassing and isolating. And why would you want to do that again? That doesn't sound good. So how does it feel that you are now in a place where you feel like you haven't controlled it?
I'm kind of embracing it
Okay.
because I figure I'm smaller than my mom was at my age. So,
Okay.
all right, that's cool. I'm
Okay.
doing okay. Like I'm measuring her life by mine, um,
Okay.
which isn't always the best either because she's no longer with us. So I don't know if
Okay.
I want to do that, but I have to take in the account of my age.
Mm-hmm.
49.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm hitting menopause yet. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, chances are probably there have been hormonal shifts, right? Even if you're not full blown into it, like we're probably edging up toward that. And so that's fun to think about. Um, I
Yeah.
just realized that my power cord is not here. So I'm gonna yell at my husband to find it. But Tammy or Beth, would you like to share a little bit? And I'm still listening.
Sure. Beth, you want to go first? You want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay. Um, I can relate to both. Is it Michelle or should I call you Mooshie? Moosh. She's laughing. She's like, but you know who I'm talking about. And Susie, since you two spoke so far, I can relate to both of you. I honestly have probably lost and gained literally a ton. So 2,000 pounds from the time I've been in high school till now. And I just turned, I'll be 58 in April. And every time I did it on my own, I think there was one time I did it through one, it wasn't Weight Watchers, but it was a different one at the time. And I always say it was something like a little switch you can't see, but when it went up, there was no stopping me. And I have lost 150 pounds 4 or 5 times. And I've gained it all back. And for a while, I actually kept it off for about 3 years. But then I got obsessive, like Susie, with benching and powerlifting to the point that after 2 years of doing it, oh yeah, I looked good, but I became exhausted. My body shut down and it said, you need to start tending to your emotional health and other things. And then this year's been a rough one for me because I've had 3 surgeries. So I can't do the things. I'm very active, but I haven't been able to be active. I'm finally up to 1.5 miles of walking. And that's taken a toll. And then I use food as my comfort. And Sally and I have talked about this recently. I almost feel like I'm maybe doing some kind of nighttime thing right now, because probably 80% of my calories are being consumed after 7 p.m. And then when I wake up at midnight, 1, 2, 3, because I'm having a hard time sleeping, I'm eating every time, but I'm not hungry. So I'm stuck a little, and I've grown a little less confident that I can do it. I've always said I've done it once, I can do it again. It is harder. I'm through menopause. It does slow down, but I'm actually a little fearful right now. I don't want to get diabetes. I don't want to suddenly have a heart attack. And it's hard on my joints, which are recovering. So it's just hard. I feel pretty just a little scared that I'm not going to be able to take it off for the first time ever.
Yeah.
It scares me.
Yeah. So what if you could approach it in a more self-loving way, and it wouldn't be so so hard to sustain?
I'm trying that. And like Susie said, she's learning to embrace it. And I feel like I have to, because I used to shame and guilt, but also self-abuse. Worked hard on that, Sally. You know that. I've stopped the self-abuse. I'm no longer physically hitting myself or saying terrible things about myself. But it's hard some days. I'm trying to just
Do you see that as progress?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the good thing.
Okay.
I
And
guess
do you
I've gotta-
say nice things to yourself about your progress?
Yeah, I try to remember to do so.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I'm embracing the fact. Yeah.
Okay.
I just,
It's normal to feel like, oh shit, what if I can't do it? I think all of us feel that way at some point. So don't feel like you're alone in that. And I think what we get to do is just shift it from, like Susie was talking about, being a fucking traumatic, embarrassing, isolating situation. And can we make it like more fun and more joyful? And let's not like make it so terrible that we don't want to stick to it, right? So I know you can do it. I see you here where you can't see yourself yet, and I see you here. So I know you can do it. So just keep the faith, man.
I will keep showing myself grace.
Yes,
Thank you for letting me share.
of course. Beth, where are you at?
All of the above. I can relate. I've done so many things. Even when somebody said V-shred, I thought, oh yeah, I did V-shred, and I did Beachbody, and I did that yoga thing that wrestler guy did. And yeah, same thing. It's been an ongoing up and down for most of my life, starting off as a child who thought she was fat but really wasn't. The most recently I had, and I was well into menopause. This was just a couple of years ago. I'm 56, and I worked with a personal fitness coach doing strength training and a little CrossFit, and it wasn't even horrible. It was like 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week, and really focusing on food. I lost like 73 pounds. It was really feeling good. And I did that because I wanted to be healthy. I've lost parents early. I lost a brother very early. I have diabetes in history in my family, and I see a lot of my nieces and nephews are very obese, and I just wanted to be a better role model for them. And it was great while I had somebody there who I would send pictures to and give my weight to. And I did lose a lot of weight, and it wasn't hard. when I had somebody there to be accountable to. And then we kind of got to the end of our run. I really probably was with her longer than most of her clients. And then she raised her prices, and it because she was just getting very popular. And, you know, I have nothing bad to say about her, but it was just like okay, now we're done, cut off. And I was going through some stress at jobs and changing jobs. And then I got a puppy, and I don't know if you haven't had a puppy in a while, it's a lot different than when you're in your 30s. So I, you know, basically gained most of it back. And so, and of course that comes with, because she was sharing all my stuff and, you know, not my weight, but my pictures. And I was feeling really good. And I let her do that because I said, this is for life. And then life happened. And so of course the shame and the guilt. And so I've been kind of low lying it on social media, which I have 2 podcasts and I write books. So I'm, should be out there, and I just haven't. So yeah, it's for me, it's just, I don't mind. I feel like I need to be a little bit more disciplined. It's just motivating myself to do that, even though I preach very adamantly that you can't wait for motivation. You have to just take action, but it's hard to do that. And it's probably more because it's a mental, just my mental state as I'm now in menopause and just dealing with stressful job. And it's just really hard to just say, okay, just, do it, go for a walk, or just, and I'm one of those, like, why can't I? Well, how can I be so successful in everything, that I've done? I've accomplished, published books after I was 50. Have had a great career. And this is the one thing that just always comes back to haunt me. So I don't want to be imprisoned by food. And I waver. Like, sometimes I really want to be in, like, I think I need to be more in control. And then other times I'm just like, I'm so tired of thinking about food 24 hours a day and walking to the fridge and going, I know that, having like maybe something a little bit more healthy, and I'm conscious of it, and I still will go, oh, well, look, there's, some cake or something. So yeah, so it's just that it's that failure thing. And I know failure is growth. So I get it, but it doesn't make that failure feel any better. It still sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think all of you brought up a little bit of like the whole comparison thing, right? Like, why can everyone else fucking do this and I'm stuck? You look at everyone else and think they've all got it all together and I'm the only schlub who can't get this right. So I hope that you see that you're not the only schlub who can't get it right. Like, we're all in the same boat here. And it's really irritating that it's easier for guys, but that it is what it is. They don't have to store their estrogen. So there. So let's go ahead and move on. I want to get into some of the like physiological things that happen in our brains that, and we're not going to go super deep into the physiology, but just broad brush strokes of why we behave the way we do. So let's go back to this. So the diet industry is, yes, there's science. Yeah, I have a degree in exercise science. There's a lot of science about nutrition. There's a lot of science about exercise. There's a lot of science behind weight loss. However, the diet industry machine primarily is a bunch of illogical nonsense packaged and marketed extremely well. So we're programmed to believe it and then fail and then buy again. It's designed that way so we will keep buying. If one diet worked and you got there and you lost weight and kept it off forever, the diet industry would die. So let's look at some of the things that the diet industry teaches us. And these are just really simple ones. I could go down a rabbit hole, but number one, it's calories in and calories out. It's simple math. If that were true, no one would have this problem. None of you have a math problem. Michelle's an accountant, for God's sake. She doesn't have a math problem. Cutting out food groups is healthy and leads to sustainable weight loss. Don't listen to your body. If you feel hungry, have some water or take a walk. You simply need more willpower. Follow the rules blindly and you'll lose weight. And if you're not successful, it's your fault. And the diet didn't fail, you did. Does that all sound like the messages that we get, basically? So the truth is, intelligent, educated women don't have a math problem or an information problem. Everybody's needs are different. So cutting out food groups is rarely sustainable. Now, there are some people who have to cut out food groups because they're allergic to them or whatever, and that's a different story. But in general, for weight loss, you cut out, even if you cut out, like, I'm not going to eat ice cream. What do you want immediately?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. So your body is very wise and it knows when to eat when we relearn how to listen to it. But most of us have been dieting for so long that we don't trust ourselves to listen to our bodies. We think our bodies are going to steer us wrong. If you're binging, you are probably under eating for your energy needs, or you may be using food as an emotional band-aid, and it could be a combination of both. So it's not just that you don't have willpower. And lastly, never follow the rules blindly. Especially women. I'm like, never follow the rules blindly. Okay, so black and white thinking is one of the things that there have been a lot of studies on self-sabotage and the mental and emotional reasons why we eat that show that black and white or all or nothing thinking is very closely linked to a fixed mindset. And you all have probably heard the terms fixed and growth mindset in terms of money or in terms of career or ambition and that kind of thing. So like Beth was talking about, sometimes we feel like we're so good in this area and this area we can't get right. So you may have a growth mindset in terms of your career, but for some reason you may have been programmed along the way to have this black and white fixed mindset when it comes to eating. So I'm going to give you some examples. This is called the what the hell cycle. Has anyone heard of this? I learned about this recently and I know you'll all relate. But let's say that you decide you're not going to eat dessert anymore. You're not going to eat after 7 o'clock, and there's a cheesecake in the refrigerator. And so you know, resist it as long as you can, but finally you give in to temptation, right? And then you say, what the hell, I've already messed up. I'm going to have another fucking piece.
Mhm.
And then you feel guilty about it. And then you are so wound up that you seek comfort and maybe you have another piece. And then you give in to temptation again, and we go around this whole cycle and we keep going around the cycle, right? We feel like shit, we comfort ourselves. We feel like shit, we comfort ourselves. We feel like shit. So when we're thinking in black and white or all or nothing terms, food is good or bad, right? Broccoli good, cheesecake bad, right? We are good or bad for eating said food, and we are either successful in our diet attempt or we are failures as people. There's no in between. Sound like how your brain works?
Mhm.
So let's
Spot
practice.
on.
Like on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being good and 10 being bad, how would you rate broccoli?
A 10.
Okay. And then how would you rate cheesecake?
2, only because it has a little protein in it from the cheese,
Okay.
but that would be that would be the story I would tell myself. But I would say
Okay.
2.
Okay. So do you see how, like, even though we've already like broad brushed over that, like, food is not good or bad, and you are not good or bad as you eat it, if you eat it, we're still thinking in those terms. We're still categorizing it, right? We're labeling it good or bad. So if you that's supposed to be, wait, was 10 good or 1 good? 1 is good. So this is supposed to be 10. So if you gave cheesecake a 10, right? It's bad. Now pretend that the cheesecake is your favorite dessert and your best friend made you one for your birthday. Does that shift the way you think about it? So it's kind of like we only give ourselves permission to not be black and white if there are other factors. And there are always other factors, right? But we try to make it so that it's A or B, it's good or bad, it's black or white. And that's what leads us to that what the hell cycle, and that's what leads us to binge eating and emotional eating, and that's what leads us to self-sabotage. So when we think in terms of black and white and good or bad, studies show we're much more likely to self-sabotage. We see ourselves as failures and go through the what the hell cycle on repeat until we just quit the new behavior. The good news is it's not your fault. It's how our brains are wired. And several different, the brain is so complex, but I'm going to go through just a few of the things that the brain is doing to us to make this process more difficult until we're aware that that's what our brains are doing to us. So it makes it difficult to stick to something new if you're not aware of what's going on. So first of all, our brains are wired to categorize everything. It's a survival mechanism. So like if we're cavemen gathering berries, like blueberries good, red berries bad, right? So we're supposed to categorize everything, and it's to protect us and keep us safe. But in this day and age, we, you know, aside from like gas station sushi, we can pretty much know like these things are probably safe to eat, right? So good, bad, right, wrong, successful or not successful, we're always categorizing things. And when we can be aware of that, we can give ourselves permission to ease up on that a little bit and be in the gray. Secondly, when we stress about dieting, which if you think about being on a diet and you're measuring your food and you're writing down and you're tracking on your phone and all that, I mean, it's stressful. You're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly wound up about it. So we're releasing cortisol, the stress hormone, which makes us hold on to fat and not only makes weight loss harder, but it also causes us to remember in vivid detail the event. So also a protective mechanism, say we eat the blueberries and they taste good and we're fine, but we eat the red berries and we have explosive diarrhea. We're going to remember that so that we don't make the same mistake twice. So again, something that's supposed to protect us is holding us back because we're remembering in 8th grade this traumatic situation we were in, and we're like, I don't want to do that anymore. So our brains are wired to keep us safe and comfortable, but safe to our brains equals the same. So even if we're uncomfortable at the weight we are at now, the situation that we're in is familiar, and therefore it's comfortable, and therefore it's safe. So our brains want to keep us there. So if we try something new, let's say I'm going to cut out bread and exercise 5 days a week and drink a gallon of water a day. Our brains are like, that sounds dangerous. And so let's sabotage that effort and go back to normal. So our brains are also wired to avoid pain and gain pleasure. So when that balance is out of whack, we're more likely to sabotage. So think about this, like if the pain of gaining 1 pound tomorrow when you weigh in is less than the pleasure of eating the cheesecake, we're going to falter to the cheesecake. So when we can balance out the scales, that's when we're successful. So that's why I think that when we can make this process fun and enjoyable, then we're having pleasure. The pleasure and the pain are more balanced, right? So we're willing to sacrifice a little bit more because we're kind of distracted by the pleasure. Like I'm having fun, so I don't really need to eat that cheesecake. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
So what over this few minutes we've been spending together makes sense? What kinds of things do you feel like you're already aware of, and what kind of things are new to you and you feel like you need to be more aware of? Anyone want to share on that?
I
I
think
will for a minute. Am I on mute? No, I'm not. I know what worked. One of the things that worked best for me along the years has been being mindful. Like, and when I would eat, I would sit down, no TV, no distractions, no texting, no playing a game. And I would eat my meal. I eat slow. I did track and I did do a few things, but overall it was being mindful. Eat and try to trust your body. Eat when you're hungry and don't eat when you're not. And it sounds so simple, but it worked. Right now, I think you're right. My brain is in a total, I'm in a war with my brain at the moment. And I feel like my logic and my awareness with my emotional needs right now have just been totally button heads.
Right.
So,
So what do you think is the solution for that?
that's the hard part. It's like I ask myself, like, if I wake up in the middle of the night, what can I do differently than eat? Because I'm not physically hungry. And I told, it's like, yes, I can read a page in my book. I can meditate. I can listen to, I've got my bedroom all set up the way, cool and comfortable and all that. But I was like, I don't know, maybe get up and walk out, not go walk a mile, but walk from my front door to my mailbox and come back and go to bed and see if a positive thing, just getting me moving to go there and back and see if that would help.
Have you tried it?
I know I'm going to start it tonight.
Okay.
Today's a day of new beginnings. The challenge
Yes.
started today. And I went back to my factor meals to try to get a good healthy meal at dinner time. And now I'm going to try that. So I'm embracing this right now as my beginning again, so to speak.
Okay. And so I would encourage you to, and I do this too, like I'll have a recipe that I like from a thing that I've tried, and I will bring that back in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as it's not getting into that black and white, like I can only eat recipes from this, I can only have this, I can only have this much of this. I'm not, so
Absolutely.
just be aware.
Yep.
Just be aware. Anyone else? Is this making sense? Is there something you feel like you need to be more aware of?
I think part of the thing I struggle with is I love the taste of food so much.
Sure.
There's so much I love to eat, and it's, I don't know if it's comforting. Like, I'm not really aware of the behind why I'm going to the refrigerator. I am home alone working all day, and sometimes I use it just a way to get up out of my chair.
Sure.
And I'm like, ooh, what could I snack on? Ooh, that would taste good. Ooh,
right.
Like, it's almost like a reward.
Yes.
Which I don't want it to be, but it gets me up.
Yeah.
But I really love the taste of everything I'm eating.
Right.
It's
Right.
not like I'm just eating to fill a void.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, because food nourishes our bodies and it nourishes our souls. And often a smell or a taste brings us back to a time that was happy, or it feels like a celebration or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. And one other thing that I didn't bring up today, but the other thing that our brains do is we produce dopamine when something is pleasurable, but we don't just release it after, like, we don't just release it as we're tasting the cheesecake. We start releasing dopamine as we're walking to the refrigerator and while we're eating the cheesecake and for a period of time afterwards. So I think one trick for you may be to find something else that you really enjoy doing, not instead of eating. You can still eat, but is that the only thing that you are using for pleasure in your day?
Yes.
So can we get our dopamine hits in other ways? Can we start practicing the art of finding other things that are joyful that we can get that dopamine hit from, and then maybe you don't feel like going to the refrigerator as often because you're filling that need in other places. Does that make sense?
I think I need to get a vibrator and call it the
There you go. Walk to the bedroom instead of the refrigerator. That's
Susie,
all.
I have a adult toy sex party coming up, and she said I can invite whoever I want.
There you go. You see how we can all support each other?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's
I can't
funny.
even remember. Well, I am hungry right now. But
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm ever truly hungry at
Mhm.
any point. I don't even let myself get to that point.
Right.
Because I just feel it. I feel the void in, before it happens.
Right. Right. So you're aware of that, and that's the first thing, right? So can you really, and maybe you are hungry sometimes, but you're not even noticing it because you're so used to shutting that off that you don't even remember what it feels like. So just be aware of that. Just start really being conscious of like my hunger and fullness cues. And like if I'm hungry, I'm gonna fucking go to the refrigerator. I'm not gonna feel bad about it. I'm not gonna beat myself up over eating a snack at 2:30 in the afternoon because I was hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else?
This is resonating with me very much what Susie said, because I call that procrastinating. Because I do it. And I wasn't even thinking about this until you started talking, that I have a big problem with boredom.
Uh-huh.
And even in my job, I've been in tech for 23 years, and so it's feast or famine. And sometimes when it's famine, it's worse than when it's like super overwhelming. And I do not deal with boredom very well.
Mm-hmm.
And so to avoid the stress of the boredom, or sometimes just the stress of the job, if it is overwhelming, I will procrastinate, which means, and that's a work from home thing. I never did that when I worked in an office. So even though I love working from home, but you don't do that when you're in office, because, of course there's, the social pressure of who's going to see me going to the candy jar right. But here, no one's there. I can have as much
Mm-hmm.
coffee as I want, and I can go to the refrigerator as much as I want. And I think about the times where I don't even think about food, which is rare. So when people say like, oh, I just forgot that I didn't even eat lunch, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
whatever. But there are times when like I could sit down and do a jigsaw puzzle, and it's like zen for me, and I'll be there for 3 hours. I won't even think. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm actually kind of hungry now. I could do that with writing. I can do it with, certain things. So, you were talking about, hey, I'll go walk to the mailbox. I thought about that before, and that doesn't work for me because I don't find pleasure in walking to the mailbox.
Mm-hmm.
But, other things, I would. So, but I just don't think about them at the time. So that's something that I'm becoming more aware of, is like, what can I do to alleviate that boredom other than going to food? If I'm
Mm-hmm.
hungry, I'll go to food, but most of the time I'm not hungry. I've already, or just eaten, and it's just getting away from that boredom. It's that headspace, I think, that I need in the
So
food.
I'll share with you, this is an example that I give people all the time. Like when my son was in 8th grade, his teacher was like realizing that he had a little bit of ADD, and she would say, why don't you go get a drink at the water fountain and take the long way back? And it was just so that he could transition his brain from one subject to the next, or from, one task to the next. And sometimes I think we use food for that. So like if I'm working and now I'm going to be bored, well, I don't really want to make decisions about what I'm going to do now. So I'm just going to eat something, and that'll kind of distract me. So when you said, I don't walk to the mailbox because I don't find that enjoyable, you may just need a little transition, something or another. And even if that's peeing or walking to the mailbox or doing something, it's just like our brains almost need a minute before we can switch gears. Like I used to have my clients, when they would come home and they would be coming home to small children, I'd be like, don't go in the house right away. Do a 5-minute meditation before you walk in the house, transition from work to home. So I think some of this working from home stuff, we don't get those natural transitions like a drive in the car, listening to music or whatever. So we're replacing that with something that's familiar, which is eating. So can you build little transitions in that would, and if you're still hungry, then yes, go. But is it that you're hungry, or is it that you need a transition?
That's really interesting. I'd never thought about it that. So I've always thought, and there's probably a little of this too, because what I reach for tends to be very sugar type of things. Like I'm a sugar addict. And I think because it does fog my brain a bit, right? You know, it's all sugar's just inflammation, and yes, it tastes good and there's the dopamine, but it also, if you're chronically eating a lot of high sugar, it fogs my brain, right? And even before menopause, it fogged my brain.
Yeah.
And I think subconsciously, I think, okay, that then I want that, because I think there's something to it. When you said your ADHD thought, I've never been diagnosed with anything, and I don't think that I have anything, but I think there are some people that like we do a lot of things to distract us from space in our brains, and boredom for me is space in my brain that I don't want, and I don't like it. I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't want to, maybe there are things about work or whatever that I don't want to think about. So it also, but I never thought about that transition thing. That's a really interesting thing about the working from home phenomenon, which I love, but there are some sides to it.
Right. So maybe you need to build in a little commute, right? Maybe you need to like listen to a song, or, you know, something to allow
go
it.
to a sex party and get some toys or something.
There you
Yeah,
go.
you're invited too. Everybody is.
I feel like it is also a mechanism for us, and Tammy and I have talked about this a lot, for us to avoid, like you were saying, Beth, thinking about the thing that we don't want to think about. But I think that if we can build those little transitions in, we can give ourselves permission that I can take a break from thinking about that, and I can think about something else for a few minutes. And it doesn't have to be totally numbing out. It can be a conscious decision, like, I'm going to write down all the things that I need to remember about this thing, and I'm going to put it aside for a minute because I don't want to think about that 24/7, and I'm not fucking getting paid enough to think about it 24/7, right?
Right. Yep.
How about you, Michelle?
Well, yes, working from home has been an adjustment, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Just because, you know, if your kids need a ride, you're there and you don't have to figure all that out. But anyway, with getting this puppy, like I've noticed I get up more. Like I take him out and he wants to lay on the deck. So I go out on the deck and I'll walk laps around the yard just to get outside with him because it's so nice.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work on that more. Because he, you know, I was taking him for walks, but of course it's dark in the morning. So I walk laps around the yard while he's playing in the morning, just, you know, getting his energy out when he first gets up.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then I try and take him for a couple walks, like 2 20-minute walks during the day. And I think that's helping more.
Good. Yeah, I think that I cannot say enough, even if you feel like you're more indoorsy than outdoorsy, I cannot stress enough how good it is for our energy system to just even be outside, take 3 deep breaths, go out barefoot if you can. It's very grounding. And I think a lot of the times, like Beth was saying, I don't want to think about this thing about work or whatever. Our brains are so busy that food distracts us from the busyness. And if we could preemptively unbusy our brains, we wouldn't be filling the need with food. So I am going to put a link. Are any of you on Insight Timer? It's a free app. You can download it for free. I'm going to send you the link to a meditation that I did this morning, which I felt like was divine timing, and I'm going to share it with all of you, about finding nourishment within. And I know at least one of you doesn't feel like meditation is really for you. You can listen to it. You can listen to it while you go for a walk, Susie. Okay, like use it for an excuse to go for an 11-minute walk. But it's about how when we can look inward and quiet ourselves, we can get a lot of what we need from inside, so we don't have to get it from outside. Makes sense?
Yes. Can I just add one thing? I think,
Yeah.
to your point, Sally, and something earlier, movement used to be my way. transitioning in between things, or so that was what brought me joy. It got my dopamine and I loved it. So whether it was walking, playing pickleball, going kayaking, it wasn't for distraction. It was for it. I loved it. It made me feel physically, emotionally. And right now I've lost that. And so unfortunately I've been trying to find, first it was the food. I'm like, no, I can't. And I still have, but I'm trying to find, like, I'm learning to read again. I'm learning to do some little do-it-yourself art projects, and you're so right. It's like, if we could just, get the chatter to slow down.
Yeah.
I
And
think
it's a practice, and it's not something that is, again, easy to keep up at first, because our brains are like, well, this is different. Fuck that. I don't want to do that anymore. But when we can make it a habit and make it something that we enjoy, and it doesn't have to be meditation. It could be listening to a song. It could be going for a walk. It could be whatever. But I think we're so inclined to think that anything fun is a waste of time. I should be doing something else. I should be working. I should be available. I should be blah, blah, blah. That we don't allow it. And then we're going for food because that's socially acceptable. Like, maybe you think, well, can't go for a walk in the middle of the day. I'm supposed to be working. But really, can't you? You know? So when we can find those little bits of joy in our day and those little bits of quiet, I think that is what helps quiet our brains down enough so that we don't have to have that transition be food. Makes sense? Okay. So is everybody in the Facebook group? Did you all get in there?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to put this meditation in the group. And so I want you all to do it. It's 11 minutes. Even if your mind wanders, that's okay.
Susie, take it to the bedroom.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, it'll be like, wow.
That meditation was awesome. You'll get from it. I firmly believe you will get from it what you're supposed to get from it, even if that's a phrase. You hear one phrase in the 11 minutes, you'll get from it what you're supposed to get from it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, and we'll kind of continue on this path tomorrow. How did we find this today? Was this helpful? Was it out of the box, or was it things that you already knew? Helpful? Okay. Okay, cool. All right, so we will continue tomorrow. I'll put this meditation in, as well as the replay, in the group. And if you think it, like, if you're thinking of questions or something that you wish you would have asked or whatever, you can always put that in the group also.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay.
And thanks
Awesome.
everybody for sharing.
Yeah, this was good. Thanks, girls, for taking the time. I appreciate it. All right, we will see you tomorrow, same time, same station.
Sounds good. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.